I wonder if I should do another waifu tier list. From all of the waifus in Crown of Leaves, Beatbanger, hell, even that one game, Lovely Overseer, there's like a shit ton that I haven't even touched up upon. But even if I did that, there's not enough waifus out there for me to do a second tier list on. I mean, it's not like another waifu is just gonna appear out of nowhere. Eh? Whoa! Well, Nintendo 64. We've all heard of it. You've heard of it. Even people who have never played it have heard of it. The Nintendo 64 was a huge accomplishment for Nintendo as their first step into the era of 3D gaming. With their launch title, Mario 64, it broke the usual norm of games being stuck on the two-dimensional plane. Even with the PlayStation being on the scene, the N64 still stayed relevant even with their usage of cartridges, rather than the new CD format that PlayStation took on. Even to this day, people absolutely adore the games and titles that released on the console, such as the aforementioned Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Pokemon Stadium, and even Star Fox 64! One of these days I'm gonna do a retrospective on the whole Star Fox series. Nintendo, I'm begging you here, give us another game. I need my Estelle Ellis crystal. Why do I bring this up though? I mean, even with the games that folks loved, times have changed and now we're at the era where graphics, high definition, and ray tracing are such a necessity to sell games to folks, whereas pixel art games and retro style games are delegated to the indie developers. However, most developers usually go for games that take on the SNES look, or even the Nintendo and Atari look, while some go for a more stylized and almost art book look, such as Night in the Woods. I love this game, by the way. We're gonna do a review on this one pretty soon. Never have I really seen a game that's taken on the N64 or PlayStation 1 style of retro, most likely due to the fact that it can be a bit difficult to create or nail down the look. However, there's one game that I think nails down this type of style. A game that was dropped so silently that I had never even heard of it until I did some scouring on Steam. So, today, let's talk about this hidden diamond of a game. Pseudoregalia, this is my 7th time trying to say this game's name, is a retro-style game that was released July 28th of this year. To be honest, from first glance, I thought this game was gonna just be a small little proof of concept, mostly because of the low price and the way that the artwork looked on the Steam page. However, as we all know, looks can be deceiving, and from the absolutely overwhelmingly positive reviews, I just had to give this game a shot. This review here is,
Simp! Simp! You are banned from the internet! Horny alert! Horny alert!
So after a quick purchase, a small download later, and a quick grab of snacks, I was ready to try out this experience. Gather around, folks, this one is a game for the ages. Believe me. Alright, so usually I would talk about the general story here, a synopsis if you will, and truth is, there kinda is no story. You play as our protagonist, who you don't even know her name until the end of the game. Her name is Sybil, and she's... holy hell.
Smash.
Excuse me. As I was saying, the story isn't exactly super in-depth or anything. The game just drops you into the first area of this world, known as the Dilapidated Dungeon, and hands control to the player. You're here now, you've got control, now start exploring. And yes, I do mean exploring because you're going to be wandering around a lot in this type. That's because this is a Metroidvania. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a game type where you run around an area looking for people or power-ups or new moves that allow you to explore more places. The more you find, the more you're able to explore. Such as in this game, where your only means of movement are running and jumping until you find your weapon, which is called the Dream Breaker. Okay, you know what, that's actually kind of badass. Now, what exactly can you expect from this game? How does it feel to play? What's the general feel of this world or castle that you're in? Well, besides expecting a whole lot of people panning the camera to Sybil's ass and hips, there's a few things that the player is going to partake in. The game is very much a movement-heavy game, meaning that Sybil here is fairly mobile and agile. She can jump, backflip, grab, and work the old poles, and as you go further into the game, she learns even more moves that help with her movement, such as the slide move, where she flings herself forward along the ground, solar wind, that allows you to jump forward after a slide, keeping your momentum, the sun greaves, which allows you to wall kick up to 3 times before hitting the ground, and the cling gem, which grants you the ability to grab onto the wall and slide against it. Kinda like Sonic's parkour mechanic in Sonic Lost World. Now, you may hear these moves and kinda think to yourself that they're very situational, but in actuality, you're gonna use these moves a whole fucking lot in this game. From using the slide to get around quicker and dodge enemy attacks, or even the sun greaves to get up higher areas, the moves are what make the exploration of the game fun. They all flow together in tandem as well, meaning that if you utilize the cling gem 1 minute, jump off the wall, and use the old wall kickers to get up higher on said wall, you can do that easily. I never really had a hard time grasping the controls or movement options, due to them being so easily accessible to the player. You don't have to switch the items or moves in the pause menu or equip them. They're just there the moment that you find them in the different areas of the game. Those aren't the only moves you'll find though, because in a Metroidvania you need to have the fodder that we call enemies. So you'll need to have moves to deal with them. Let's talk enemies real fast though. The game doesn't have too many variations of enemies per se, with them being reused in a lot of the stages. And there only being one boss that you fight in the game, which is at the end. You got these little egg dudes, the tuba playing guys, the hands that shoot lightning balls at you, the maids that'll chuck plates in your direction, and the giant knights that kind of feel like those damn Dark Nuts in Twilight Princess. Yeah, you know the ones. These motherfuckers. These guys have some stupid ass names. Anyways, you have your standard 3-hit combo that you can kind of move around while using, and the other moves that you can find, like Strike Break, which is a charged attack for your Dream Breaker, Sunsetter, which is a slam attack to the ground, and even has the added benefit of shooting you upwards with a super jump if you jump right after, and Soul Cutter, which is a ranged attack that you can shoot during a Strike Break. The combat in the game feels similar to that of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, with there even being a lock-on mechanic that can be used. However, the camera seems to work more similarly to Kingdom Hearts, where it focuses on the area in between you and the enemy, rather than like in Ocarina of Time where the camera is locked behind Link and follows the enemy. It took me a while to get used to this, but most enemies in this game don't exactly move too much, except for the final boss, which you're just better off not using the lock-on feature in general. The combat is a bit basic, but it's definitely not something that I hated or wished it wasn't there. It ain't no DMC, but it's still a good time. Now, the last of the moves are more of buffs or things that help the player, which is Indignation, which buffs the range and power of your attacks, so long as you have your special bar filled, and Ascendant Light, which allows the Dream Breaker to glow, lighting up dark areas, which is necessary for one of the areas in the game. Now, for all of these moves, they're all reliant on the Dream Breaker, which means it's very problematic when this happens. Yeah, didn't expect that, did you? If you're hit by one of these stone statue knights, you have the chance of getting flung back and potentially losing your Dream Breaker. Not to worry though, because you can pick it right back up by just running to it. Problem is that if you accidentally throw it off of the cliff, yes, I've done that before on accident, or to a spot you can't get to it, that means that some of your skills, such as healing, and your high jump, and all of your attack abilities, are inaccessible. Fortunately, if you make it to one of these save crystals, you can call back your weapon by merely holding the heal button. So, for a game that is fairly simple, it has a lot of moves and concepts that give the game its own identity. There are plenty of N64 games that tackle Metroidvania and swordplay and platforming on their own, but not many of them were able to mesh them together too much, in my opinion. The game does that while making sure that the game, if put on a cartridge, could actually work. Even down to the menus and the sound effects, and even the models themselves, they all have that N64 feel that just feels so nostalgic. So, the game is great, right? Nothing really to complain about? Well, there's one thing I may have an issue with. Usually in a Metroidvania, there's always some sort of way to track where you are, whether it's a mini-map or a menu that shows where you are in the world. In this game, There are 9 different areas, which are the Dilapidated Dungeon, Castle Sansa, Sansa Keep, the Underbelly, Empty Bailey, Listless Library, Twilight Theater, Distorted Memory, and Tower Remains. Each place is interconnected in some way and feels like it could be all in one world, just branched together. The areas look absolutely beautiful and distinct with one another, with beautiful music that accompanies each area. The main problem is that without a map, I have no idea as to where I am or where I'm going. I sometimes find myself hopelessly lost or stumbling along, trying to figure out if where I'm going is the right way. Fortunately though, the rooms within each area usually have some sort of landmark or distinct room format that makes them unique, making it easier to know where you're going. And once you go through each room, you'll instinctively know where you are and where you'll need to go. And that's gonna be a key factor, because in this game, there are few things you need to get, along with your power-ups, to get to the end. There are a total of 5 major keys that you need to obtain, and when they're all found, you'll be able to continue onward to the final boss. The final boss, though, is not exactly that difficult. Just respect our attack patterns and you'll be perfectly fine. Of course, I would suggest that you find some of the health upgrade pieces in the aspects, which are little items that can give you some stat buffs and other minor techniques, as well as one of the extra outfits you can give Sybil, called the Professional Outfit. I found this by accident. It looks really nice on her, by the way. When the boss is defeated and the world is brought back to normal, you'll find out that the princess had been escaping in her dream due to her life being a bit crummy. However, her dream started to become a problem to the people around her, trapping them within. Thus, Sybil had no choice but to step in and break this dream, freeing the princess and the one trapped inside. And thus, your journey ends. A game like this is something that is hard to just be okay with it being over. Like I said, not many games have been able to tackle the feel of an N64 game, in both gameplay, sound design, and art direction. It's something that leaves me wanting more, which is why after playing the game and beating it after around 4.5 hours, I was a bit saddened to see it end. Though it makes sense, what with this game technically being an extended version of a proof of concept that was made for the Metroidvania Month 19 Game Jam, which is an itch.io event that challenges game devs to make a game in 1 month. However, this game has gotten so much notoriety and love by fans that it even already has mods being created for it. From adding new outfits, overhauling the attire menu, and even creating a full randomizer for speedruns and challenges, this game has content being made. And installing the mods aren't even hard to do either, which makes this a fucking gem to play and try out. Though, be careful with the mods because most of them are, well, yeah, if you wanted to see Sybil showing more fur and more, anatomy, you could do that, I guess. Pseudoregalia is a short but exquisite experience, one that harks back to a day and age where games were just games. No DLC, no online services, and no glitchy multiplayer. Just a good game with a solid experience. You gotta give this game a shot and take a look at what games back then were like. With that being said, I'm gonna give this game a 9 out of 10. Only reason why it isn't a perfect score is mostly because of the lack of a map. However, the game is not hindered without one. Try this game and enjoy. I know you'll love it. And be on the lookout for the developer's upcoming title called Electrokinetic, which is a roguelike with a few of the same movement options from Pseudoregalia. Definitely gonna pick this one up when it releases. Alright, now that this review is done, I've now come up with a new furry waifu. Look, the developer knew what they were doing. I mean, look at this woman's birthing hips! Even I'd let her pin me down and handle my dream breaker.